All right, people. So thank you very much. You don't have to do anything to record. This is being recorded, and via the same link, you're going to be able to see this again and share with your peers, share with your friends. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be available for you all the time. Okay, so don't worry about that. Well, all the time. I'm sorry. I was focused on three things at the same time. The recording is going to be available for everyone who registered. Okay, so don't worry about that. You don't have to record it. It's being recorded for you. All right. So let me start then by saying again, thank you very much. We have upwards of 100 people in the room today. Thank you. I hope I'm not going to make anybody angry because this is a very complicated issue to discuss. I hope you will forgive me if I come off aggressive at some points. I don't mean to. It is just that I think this is a very important issue, and unfortunately, no one talks much about it. And I think people should talk more about it, right? I'm going to start by giving you guys my email address. Okay, here. This is my email address, and the reason I'm giving you my email address right now is I am going to try and keep an eye at the chat here during the presentation. But since it's quite a few people, I might miss questions, participations, and everything. So if you want to speak to me, if there's any question you want to ask, even you guys watching a recording of this later on, if you want to get in touch with me, that's my email address, and it's going to be an honor to interact. Okay, so that's why I'm giving you my email address from the beginning. I see people still coming in. Welcome, everyone. But we are now officially going to start. This is what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to rant a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with that word. A rant is a long complaint about something. So if you rant, it means that you're complaining about something. So basically, I'm going to complain about something for a little while, if you will let me. And then I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean. I'm going to discuss what can hopefully be a way forward, how we can maybe get better at this thing that I think is a problem. And then, if you can forgive me, I'm going to do a little bit of shameless advertisement. Not so shameless. I am a bit ashamed of the advertisement, but I think it's important too. Hello, I see some people coming in late. Hello, hi, dear. How are you? Good to see you. Although I can't see you, you know what I mean. Okay, so here's my email address again. Yeah, have you written it down? You will have it again in the end, but if you know my name, it's very easy to remember the email address. Okay, so here we go. I think there is an elephant in the room, in the ELT room. ELT, English Language Teaching. Yeah, so I think there is a very big elephant in our room. If you look here at the slide, I don't know if you're familiar with this expression, the elephant in the room, but is anybody familiar with the expression? Would anybody like to perhaps type here in the chat box what the expression means? The elephant in the room. Anyone? No? Nobody? Okay. Something embarrassing, I see. Big impact, good. How to set a problem no one talks about. A problem that is ignored, Marcus says. That's it. It's usually, I mean, there is a problem. All the people involved know that there is a problem, and yet we prefer not to talk about it. I think the elephant in the room here is the fact that we as English teachers, we as teachers of English in Brazil, although it's not only in Brazil, as I'm going to show you in a little while, we have a very serious language problem. We have a very serious language problem. So we sometimes as teachers have lots of difficulty to get our points across in English. We have difficulty to make ourselves understood in English. We have pronunciation issues. We have issues with grammar. We have issues with vocabulary. We have pretty much every kind of language issue. And unfortunately, we simply don't talk about it. We just pretend that it isn't there, or we just hope against hope that it's somehow going to disappear magically if we ignore it long enough. I mean, we have ignored it for a very long time, and it hasn't done anything to help us now, has it? We have a reality in which kids go to school in Brazil for many years. They study English. I studied English at school for 8 years, and I have to tell you that I didn't learn any English at school, and it is the case actually. Not it might be. I'm gonna try to avoid all the hedging and all the might and all the modality. I'm just going to say it, to call it like it is. And then you may disagree with me, but at least we're going to be talking about it, right? There is a language problem. Kids study English at school for at least 8 years and they learn nothing. And the situation in regular school, sorry, in language schools is different, of course, but in some cases, not that different. The thing is, the problem ranges from very, very, very serious. I mean, teachers who really cannot speak English or only speak English with enormous difficulty, to smaller but still important problems of teachers who can speak English, who can deal with basic intermediate classes. I'm going to go back to that in a minute, but have a lot of difficulty to speak a bit more at a level that is a bit more advanced, or to discuss topics that are a bit more sophisticated, and that's terrible. It is subject matter. It is the thing we teach, and we don't know much about it. So why do I think it's very, very important that we address this elephant that we have in the ELT room today? Simple, because we don't talk about it. Because we have a problem, as I said, because ignoring a problem doesn't solve it. And I'm going to go farther and say that we've been ignoring this problem for a very long time, and we simply have not been dealing with it, and the problem is only getting worse. And I know I make the same joke every time, but it's not really a joke, it's a fact. If anyone here is married, you know it. My wife reminds me of that all the time, that ignoring a problem doesn't solve it. I mean, so if you just leave a light bulb that's not working alone to its own devices, it's never going to change itself. And so ignoring that problem is not going to solve it. Ignoring the language problem that we have is not going to solve it. Yeah, we have to do something about it. And I also think that solving it might mean thriving. I think that the better you are at using English, the better you are at writing in English, the more competent a user of English you are, the better off you'll be, I mean, career-wise. So that's when the opportunities will come, opportunities to coordinate schools, opportunities to teach much higher levels, opportunities to charge more for your private classes, opportunities to thrive, to be more successful. Yeah. One of the main problems we have, perhaps the single most important problem we have as teachers of English as a foreign language in Brazil, I think, is our knowledge of subject matter, is our knowledge of English. Yeah? So we need to do something about it. Our students deserve it, and I think it is at the very least, guys, as important as everything else. Yeah? There is nothing about teaching that is more important than knowing subject matter. We may agree that there are perhaps things that are as important as knowledge of subject matter, but I don't think anything is more important than knowledge of subject matter. And we need to talk about it, and that's what we're going to do here today. I hear some people saying that there is an internet issue. I mean, 2 people have complained. Can you guys hear me well? Yeah, Marcus can hear me well. Yeah, the reason I ask for the people who are having problems is that if the problem is on my end here, it's going to affect everyone. So if it is good for some of you, it means that the problem, unfortunately, is on your end and not here. Yeah, but please, if it gets really, and even more important, if there is a problem here on my end, that's going to affect the recording. But people who are having problems, you can rest assured that the recording will be perfect, and then you can go and watch a recording after all, okay? But I am sorry that some of you are experiencing issues. Moving on then. So what I've said so far, in a nutshell, to summarize these first 10 minutes is, we need to work on our English. We don't. And it's even more serious than not working on our English. We don't even talk about it. So that pretty much sums up what I said in the last 10 minutes. There's a very serious language problem among English teachers in Brazil, not only in Brazil, but our reality is Brazil. There's a very serious problem. And not only are we not doing anything to solve it, we're not even talking about it. So that is very, very serious. Look, I am at the moment a member of the board of BRAZ-TESOL. I'm vice president of BRAZ-TESOL. And BRAZ-TESOL, as you may know, is the biggest association of teachers of English in Brazil. One of the biggest in the world, actually. We're affiliated with both TESOL in the United States and IATEFL in the United Kingdom. It's a pretty massive association of teachers. And we hold conferences all over the country, all the time. We just had a great symposium a few weeks ago here in São Paulo. We have our local chapters pretty much everywhere. I mentioned at the beginning of the talk that we're going to have something in Curitiba very soon, but we just had one in Florianópolis I think last week. So we're very active. We're always meeting teachers and discussing things with teachers. But it's not only BRAZ-TESOL, of course. As I said, there is IATEFL, TESOL. Last weekend I was at a conference organized by SIL-LAP. We had a conference here in São Paulo recently organized by the national schools, Casa Thomas Jefferson alumni, and in the ICBEUs and so on. And one thing that all these conferences have in common, is that there's no one talking about language development for teachers. So I'm making a mea culpa here. BRAZ-TESOL, that happens at BRAZ-TESOL as well. It's like, these are some popular conference topics these days. So we see teachers talking about critical thinking, using technology in the classroom, life skills, teaching the systems, rapport, selling courses, you name it, everything. Yeah, but look at any conference program and look for teachers or specialists discussing how much English teachers should know, and if it really is a good idea to place teachers who are very inexperienced and speak very poor English teaching basic classes, if that is really a good idea. This is what you should do from a coordinator's perspective. And there isn't. You simply won't find it, or you're only going to find it very, very rarely. I mean, on occasion, we do have one teacher there who usually talking about something else and touches on the issue of language development for teachers. Now, I am not saying that these topics are not important. They're vital. Okay? What I said in the slide before, what I am saying is language development for teachers should at the very least be as important as everything else. Okay? So let us talk about critical thinking. Let us talk about technology in the classroom, but let us also talk about how much language we need to know, right? We have a very serious problem in ELT today, and I'm sure everybody is going to agree with this one, which is Adrian Holiday coined the term for this problem. It's native speakerism. What is native speakerism? It's basically this seeming preference that there is in the market for teachers of English. Yeah, sorry, for teachers of English who are native speakers of the language. So there seems to be in many schools, and also some students or many students seem to prefer native speakers of English as teachers. So Americans, Brits, Australian people, and so on. Why? Think about it. Why? Anyone? Because I'm going to answer while you guys type. It's prejudice. Yeah, we don't justify prejudice. We fight prejudice. We fight any kind of prejudice, including this ridiculous prejudice against non-native teachers of English like you and me. At least it seems to me like everybody here is a non-native teacher of English. Well, I am. And I think we have to fight this absurd uh, uh, prejudice. We do. I mean, again, it's another problem that if we don't do anything about it, we're not going to solve it. So we have to be very vocal about it. We have to be very adamant about not accepting this preference for native speakers. Because I saw some people wrote here, Cristina did. She's Brazilian, and that doesn't make her a Portuguese teacher. Exactly. I mean, being Brazilian doesn't make you an architect. Being Brazilian doesn't make you an engineer. Being Brazilian doesn't make you anything other than Brazilian. You know? So being American doesn't make you a teacher. Being Australian doesn't make you a teacher. That is ridiculous. So we have to fight. But it is my contention, guys, that one way of fighting this, that can perhaps be a very successful way of fighting this is, want to guess what I'm going to say? Good. Well, it's what Susan said. Development, Haida, exactly. But language development. Language development. You want to fight native speakerism? Do. If you're a teacher, if you're a coordinator, for example, or a school owner, if we have school owners here in the room, if we have coordinators here in the room, if you hire teachers because of where they were born, you are part of the problem. Shame on you. Shame on you. If you are a teacher of English, and when you sign up for CAE and CPE preparation courses, or when you decide to do a CELTA course and you prefer native speakers as teachers, shame on you. You're part of the problem as well. Yeah? So you can only fight a prejudice that you don't have yourself, right? I saw somebody right here, mongrel, what is it? Síndrome de vira-lata that we have. We do have that a little bit. But if you as a teacher, if you prefer teachers who are native speakers, when you're studying French or when you're studying Spanish, you prefer native speakers, then you're a part of the problem. You have to fight you as well. Yeah. But let me say something I haven't said here, which is very important. I have nothing against native speakers of English. Absolutely nothing against native speakers of English. I'm going to mention by name some absolutely phenomenal native speakers we have as teachers working here in Brazil. There's James Taylor, who works for Cultura Inglesa in Brazil. There is Stephen Green, who works in Curitiba. There is, and I'm mentioning names of famous people because then you might know them, because there are many actually. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. Yeah? I have absolutely nothing against native speakers. I have everything against people who sell themselves as teachers simply because they're native speakers, because that doesn't make you a teacher. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about native speakerism now. But if we want to fight the Claire Venables, absolutely, Claire is phenomenal from Australia. Yeah? I could go on. I mean, there are Damien Williams was my Delta tutor a long time ago. He's now back in the UK. But he used to work here in Brazil. He was in Brazil for many years. He was absolutely phenomenal. There are many, but they are not phenomenal teachers because of where they're from. Claire is not phenomenal because she's Australian. James is not phenomenal because he's British. Yeah? Stephen is not phenomenal because he is British. Absolutely not. But if somebody said happy birthday to me, thank you. It is my birthday. That's a bit of shameless self-promotion. So I will accept gifts. Thank you very much. But if you want to fight native speakerism, one thing that you can do that's going to help me, that's going to help everybody here in this room, is you can study English. You can get better at English, because the better you are at English, the better it is for me. The better I am at English, the better it is for you. Because when students begin having classes with Brazilian teachers of English who have excellent command of the language, that is the day they're going to stop thinking that native speakers are better than us. I'm not justifying, and I'm not saying they're right. They're not right. Choosing choosing any teacher based on where the teacher's from is ridiculous. It's pathetic. It's unacceptable. But if you want to do something about that, improve your English. And if your English is already phenomenal, I love this quote. Do you know I'm sorry, the people who heard this joke 25 times before, but do you know the philosopher Ben Parker? Do you guys know who Ben Parker is? No, no. Spider-Man is Peter Parker, right? Ben Parker is Spider-Man's uncle. And do you remember what he used to say about great power? With great power comes what? With great power comes more than responsibility, comes great responsibility. So with great power comes great responsibility. So if your English is already excellent, if you're already a C2 level, well, first of all, it's not enough. There's more to learn. There's always more to learn. But then you are responsible for helping your fellow teachers, for helping your fellow Brazilian teachers get better by starting a study club or a study group in your school, by discussing this with your friends in teachers' rooms, like you need to study English. I'm sorry about that, Danielle, but you can't hear it. I'm really, really sorry. But you can watch a recording, okay? You can watch a recording. Anyone can watch a recording if you're having issues with the internet. Can everybody hear me? Most of you anyway? Is this working for most of you? No? Yes? Okay. So moving on. And look, I am not here to say that if you have problems with your English, and you probably do, we have 163 people here in the room now. You know why I'm sure you do? Because I do too. We all do. There are always things that we don't know. And it's going to sound obvious, but when we don't know something, we usually don't know that we don't know. Yeah? For example, responsibility is a very hard word to spell. Yeah, have a look at it. I learned very recently from a friend, Natalia Guerreiro, whom you might know because she's very famous and wonderful and marvelous and Brazilian, and I'm very proud of her. But Natalia, the other day, she attended a talk of mine, and I'm always talking about the importance of punctuation and how we can sometimes punctuate our ways out of a paper bag. And then, but I kept on saying throughout the talk, I said punctuation, punctuation, punctuation. Actually, I've always said punctuation. I've always pronounced punctuation. And then at the end of the talk, Natalia walked up to me. She said, "Isn't it punctuation, or isn't punctuation also possible, or something like that?" She wouldn't just correct me. She's too cute for that. And then I said, "Oh my God, really?" And I looked the word up in the dictionary, and I found out that I had always mispronounced the word punctuation. See, I still have to think about it whenever I say it. And it's an important word because it is a word I talk about a lot, and I mispronounced it a million times. But why did I mispronounce it? Because I didn't know, obviously. And I used the word so often that I was probably never going to notice it. I was already impervious to exposure. I was never going to get it, never. I was simply going to keep on mispronouncing it forever if Natalia hadn't come to me and told me about it. So I think language development for teachers has a lot to do with being humble as well, being modest, with understanding that there is a lot that we don't know, and that there is a lot of room for improvement always. Juliana says there's a lot of competition in language schools. Some teachers don't appreciate helping others. It's true, but we have to change that. This is one of the reasons nobody talks about this topic. It's very complicated. I always say in talks, Juliana and everybody else, that if I observe your class, or if you observe my class, and the feedback says you need to work on your report a little bit, you need to work on your board work a little bit, and the person's there making notes, accepting the feedback most of the time. But if the feedback is about language, the person immediately gets defensive. The person immediately gets defensive, really. Like, oh my God, no, it isn't. Or if I say that you have to work on your ED endings, for example, then teachers will say, no, I didn't, or it's because I was speaking slowly and this is a basic group or whatever. That's it, Ana Cristina. We forget that teacher is a learner. We're never ready. We're never 100% ready. There's never going to be a point at which we're not going to have to study anymore. Never. This is simply never going to happen. If you expect that to happen, you're wrong. It's never going to happen. You know. Look at the size of this book here. This is the Cambridge Grammar of English. Do you think you know everything that is in here? I'm sure not even the authors know or remember everything that is in there. So starting from grammar, I mean, think of a grammar this thick, a grammar book this thick. Right next to it, there's also, no, here, there's Practical English Usage by Michael Swan as well. Another brick of a book that focuses on grammar. So do we know all of it? Of course we don't know all of it. So there's always something to learn. And I'm going to go back to what I was saying before. The more we study, the better off we'll all be. Every time you form a study group in your school, every time you start preparing for a new international certificate, every time you learn something about English, every time you get better at one particular aspect of your English, you're helping me, you're helping Susan, you're helping Nacho, you're helping Elaine, you're helping Sally, you're helping everybody in the room. Because the more students have experience with amazing speakers of English who are Brazilian or who are Argentinian or who are Turkish or whatever, the better off all of us will be. Yeah? So I have classes with Mirelli, and Mirelli speaks absolutely fantastic English. And Mirelli is Brazilian. So I'm going to be more inclined to accepting another Brazilian next time. But now, if her English is not so good, and I mean that in multiple ways, then that might make me prefer a native, which is wrong, I mean, because it doesn't mean native speakers do not know more about language than we do. I mean, think about how much the Brazilians normally know about Portuguese. I'm going to write something here in the chat box. Only native speakers make this mistake. They write "I must have known" instead of "I must have known" because of how it sounds. So a native speaker who's not a teacher, who doesn't know much about the language, might write that. I've never seen a Brazilian write that. I must have known. So being a native speaker doesn't make you. Guerreiro is her last name. Mariana Guerreiro, Natalia Guerreiro. But the more experiences, the more positive experiences Brazilian students have with Brazilian teachers of English, the better off we'll all be. So don't think just of yourself. Think of me. Think of all the people here in this room and get better. Get better because you're going to be doing all of us an enormous favor. Yeah? And perhaps we're going to stop having desperate people everywhere. We see in conferences, I'm laughing, I'm smiling, but it's not funny at all. It's terrible. So as I said, because of BRAZ-TESOL, and because I'm a teacher, and because I absolutely love seeing teachers, I participate in lots and lots of conferences and events for teachers. Very blessed, by the way, because I know it's very lucky to have the chance to participate in so many events with teachers. But what we see, for example, in the break, or sometimes a teacher wants to walk up to a speaker at the end of a talk and ask a question, make a comment, whatever. And as I was saying in the breaks, they want to make friends and so on. And some people simply cannot do it. They don't feel confident enough because they're wary of their English. They don't feel confident enough to walk up to a speaker and chat with him. I saw this last Saturday I heard actually last Saturday here in São Paulo in the Stellab conference. I don't know the teacher, so I could never use his name, and I wouldn't, obviously. But at the end of Ben Goldstein's plenary, fantastic speaker, by the way, if you've never seen Ben, another example of a native speaker who is absolutely phenomenal, but not because he's a native speaker, because he's devoted his whole life to studying this. Yeah? But Ben Goldstein gave this absolutely thought-provoking, touching, sentimental plenary, and then this guy behind me wanted to go and talk to Ben, and then he was chatting to his friend behind me and saying, "Oh, I really wanted to go there and talk to him, but I won't, of course." And that conversation was in Portuguese. He didn't say that it was because of his English, but it could have just been because he was shy, another possibility. But it could have been because of his English, and it's a shame because Ben Goldstein is this really approachable guy, and he could have asked a question, he could have taken a picture, he could have talked to the guy a little bit, and he didn't, perhaps because of his English. And then I see this happen in conferences all the time. I mean, people who will only speak to friends if it's in Portuguese, will only make friends if it's with Brazilian people who are willing to speak Portuguese because they're afraid of speaking English in front of other people. Come on, teachers, we cannot be afraid of speaking English in front of other people. How about getting better at English so that we are not ashamed of using English in front of other people? And we have to do something about it. Do you see how unacceptable this is? Either this is unacceptable or I'm insane, which is, of course, always a possibility too. Because for as long as I've been, there are teachers who make jokes about other teachers' English. Yeah, it's absurd. But these are, I mean, if this weren't, okay, I was going to say a bad word. I'm not going to say a bad word. But these are imbeciles. Yeah? These are imbeciles. I mean, if you make fun of somebody's weakness, you're an imbecile. Yeah? I mean, that's what you are. So let us not measure this beautiful, let's not assess, evaluate this beautiful group of people that we are by these imbeciles. I mean, these people really, no, I won't, Mark. I wanted to, but I won't. I mean, these people are not us. These people are not representative of us. We are actually a very caring, lovely, a pretty fabulous group of people. I mean, I am proud of many things. I mean, I'm proud of my daughter. I'm crazy proud of my daughter. But one of the things I'm most proud of in my life is of being a teacher, is of being a member of this community with you people. These people are stupid. Yeah? I mean, people who make fun of each other are stupid. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to get better and help each other. Yeah? And for as long as we don't do that, for as long as we pretend that this is not happening, I mean, we're going to do precious little to fight native speakerism, I think. Anyway, I may be wrong, but then we have to talk about it, right? Somebody just said I look like a person I don't know, Rafael Cortez. I hope he's handsome. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to find out. Totally off topic, you're right. Okay. So I've been pestering people about this for a very long time. I haven't started talking about language development for teachers today. Actually, 18 years ago when I started working as a teacher, 18 years and a half, I realized, because it's obvious, not because I'm a genius, because it's obvious, I think everybody realizes that very early on, that if I wanted to get anywhere, that if I wanted to do anything, if I wanted to have a chance to coordinate schools, to work with teachers, to work with teacher training, which is something I have always wanted to be a part of, I was going to have to work on my English. And so when the idea for my book came up, and I had the idea, I started pestering people on Facebook. I mean, I started asking course book writers, for example. You know, you can be friends with these people on Facebook. Most of them very, very approachable, and they'll reply to your emails, they'll reply to your messages. And so I started writing to every big name in ELT who would listen to me and who would give me the time of day. And I got lots and lots of replies, which was wonderful. It was great. It was really cool to get to talk to these people. And then one very famous course book writer had this to say to me. This is what he said, or she said. I'm not going to say who it is. Maybe a man, maybe a woman. But what I heard was, I think the sad reality is, though, that for a very large number of the world's teachers, their English is barely above A2. B1 to be generous. If you're not familiar with the Common European Framework, we're talking about the threshold between elementary and pre-intermediate. Yeah? Carla, I'm going to go back to what you said. We need financial support for that. And then Nell said something similar. Teachers were not interested in improving because they're not paid as well as they should. I'm gonna make a note of this. I want to talk about money in the end, not now. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I'll talk about the money thing. Exams and courses are expensive. Okay, Maria de Fatima. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I read your chat and I forget what I was saying. So basically, what this teacher or this course book writer said is that, well, and the person travels all over the world giving speeches, so he knows teachers not only he knows teachers in not only in Brazil but all over the world. So that's their English is very above A2, B1 to be generous. I think, and you may disagree with me, by the way, feel free to disagree with me at any point. It's absolutely okay, so long as you're willing to discuss that with me and with each other and with everyone in the business. But I think that if we look, for example, in mainstream education, if we look at the situation of our ensino regular in Brazil at the moment, I think it is A2, to be generous already, because we do have teachers at A1 level. Okay, I'm generalizing. Every generalization is stupid. Of course, there are teachers in regular education who speak phenomenal English, who write phenomenally, and I know several of them. People who write for magazines and people who speak at conferences and so on. So I'm generalizing, and I am sorry. Generalizing is ridiculous. It's always stupid, but generally speaking, the level is very low. The level of English. I'm not talking about the level of talent, the level of quality, the level of care. Talking about the level of English only. It's pretty low. Okay? It's pretty low. You see, I'm talking about this and I have to dance around the topic a little bit and I have to excuse myself like a million times. I understand this is a thorny issue. But if we're going to stop talking about the thorny issues, if we're going to avoid talking about the thorny issues, I mean, what good will we do in the long run? So I agree with this coursebook writer. I do. I haven't been everywhere. I don't know teachers everywhere. I mostly know teachers in Brazil. That's my reality. I am Brazilian. I work in Brazil. I've worked all my life in Brazil. And I work with Brazilian teachers of English. So this is the reality I know. But yeah, that sounds pretty accurate to me. And then I'm talking about language schools. I'm not talking about ensino regular. I'm not talking about schools. So it's serious. It's very serious. People, look, I'm sorry that I'm not participating in your conversations very much. But again, as I said before, I am more than willing to interact on Facebook. I'm going to give you my Facebook page in the end. There's the Facebook page for the book. There's my personal Facebook, which is basically about teaching anyway. So if you want to be my friends on Facebook, it'll be a pleasure to be your friend on Facebook. And we can keep on talking about this, right? By email, or everywhere. And so I'm sorry that I can't participate so much. Otherwise, I get lost. So I'm gonna give you the first quote. I love this quote. This guy is Hungarian, so Peter Medgayes or something like that. He's Hungarian, and he says, "The only way we non-native English-speaking teachers can command more respect is through mastery of the English language." And then if you look at the other part in red, he says, "For us to be effective, self-confident, and satisfied professionals, first we have to be near native speakers of English." As the person, I forgot who it was, but the person who saw me speak at CNA a couple of weeks ago, as I said there, I detest this near native speaker of English thing. I don't think native speakers should even be models. I mean, I certainly, when I study pronunciation and when I try to get better as a teacher and as a user of English every day, I don't have Americans or British people or Australian people as I don't know, my goal, my objective. My objective is not to sound like them. I'm not saying that we have to sound like native speakers. I disagree. But since there aren't many people writing about it, I have to quote Peter Medgayes here because there isn't much else. Yeah. And I do agree with the sentiment. For us to be more effective, self-confident, more satisfied, have more opportunities, have the courage to walk up and talk to Ben Goldstein at the end of his plenary and so on, we have to be proficient speakers of the language. We have to be trying to get better and to effectively be getting better every day. Right? So this is very important. I agree there. And then there's this woman. If you're not going to remember anything else from this talk, remember Silvana Richardson's name. Okay, Silvana Richardson. Silvana Richardson is amazing. She's from Argentina, so she's a non-native speaker of English herself. She works at Bell International in the UK, I think. But she gave a plenary session at IATESOL a couple of years ago. She's brilliant. This is part of an interview she gave about the situation of non-native teachers in the world. And this is what Silvana Richardson said. The big problem here, I think, is that in many places in the world, demand for language teachers much outweighs supply. So you're in a situation where you're so desperate that you appoint someone who knows a bit of English. And in a way, because the situation is so widespread, it becomes the norm. When something becomes the norm, it's what we do, it's acceptable, and it becomes the standard. She goes on to say that I think we need collectively as a profession, I completely agree with her, please focus on this is beautiful. I think we need collectively as a profession to be more vocal and critical about that, and to remind ministries of education and local educational authorities, like for example, school coordinators, school owners, that that is not what a professional should be like. We should clearly state what the minimum proficiencies or competencies required are for professional teachers to teach English as a foreign language. And until you get there, it's all about language development, language improvement. Until you get there, it's all about language improvement. I mean, I don't know how to put in words how much I agree with Silvana Richardson on this one. That's it. I mean, of course, we should be talking about how to teach listening, how to teach writing, how to teach a million things. This is important. This is what we do, right? But if we don't start getting better at English, we're never going to improve the situation. We're this absolutely colossal country where such few people speak English. You've noticed that, of course, you're professionals of the area. I mean, tourists come to Brazil and they have a very hard time finding anyone who can speak English. Why? Why is that? Is English that difficult, really? There are many reasons why. I mean, we could spend a month discussing the reasons why that is. I mean, level of education, crappy government, crappy secretaries and ministers of education, one after the other, no public policy of any kind that actually works. People basically, governments especially, they're only worried about things that can get them reelected, so they hardly, if ever, do anything that's perhaps only going to make a difference 10, 20 years down the road. So there are many reasons for that. But certainly we as professionals, we as people who are willing to spend a Monday evening attending a webinar, I mean, we have to do something about it. I mean, we have to get better at English ourselves, and we have to get conversations going with our fellow teachers, because we are educators after all, aren't we? And we have to discuss this in our pedagogical meetings, to discuss this in the teachers' gatherings of the schools we work for. We have to talk about English. We have to stop talking only about critical thinking and how to teach listening and how to use the interactive whiteboard. To hell with the interactive whiteboard if you can't speak English. I mean, if you have difficulty to speak English, who the hell cares about the interactive whiteboard? Throw it away for all I care, but get better at English. Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, there I was looking at the conversations again. Some examples, okay? I mean, some examples just for us to think about. Every day, together or separate. And you have there, studying sociology required us to try. These are examples from my new book, by the way. In the new book, Inglês para Professor 2, which is going to come out in early January. Sorry, in early 2018. It was going to be this year, but I didn't finish it, so my fault. All the examples come from authentic sources. All the examples come from books. So this is from an actual book written by the former president of Brazil. And I don't mean this politically. I simply read the book. It was in English. I used 2 sentences as examples. You'll see the sentences are not about politics or are not about promoting a certain side of the political spectrum in any way. But studying sociology required us to try to explain the larger forces driving everyday events in Brazil. Every day is an adjective, together, almost every day during the strike, blah, blah, blah. Every day is an adverb, separate. Teachers make a lot of mistake with that, a lot of mistake with that, and I see this very frequently. Perhaps I used to make a mistake with that as well at the beginning of my career, before I learned that every day together and every day separate were actually two different words. So this is an example of grammar. Here's an example of vocabulary. She got angry just thinking about it now. Well, good luck with your audition. Are you nervous? So nervous and angry is a little complicated because in Portuguese you can get nervoso or bravo. Nervoso meaning bravo, yeah, in Portuguese. And in English, nervous doesn't mean that. Nervous doesn't mean angry. Nervous means anxious, only anxious. So if you're angry, nervous is not a synonym. Yeah? So this is important too, another common error that is made by us on occasion. And then I wanted to give you one example of pronunciation too. And then we have, exactly, Maureen, is that how you pronounce your name? So yeah, everyday adjective, everyday separate, 2 words, it's an adverb. Yeah, that's it. ATE endings. So this is perhaps one of the most common pronunciation mistakes at word level that Brazilian teachers make. So we have, for example, the verbs here. The verbs pronounced advocate, estimate, certificate as a verb, because even though it's a pretty rare verb, the verb exists. Yeah. So those would be pronounced ate. But if the words, think like this, if the word ends in ATE, but it has 2 or more syllables, then the ATE is not going to sound ate. It's going to sound it. So we have advocate, estimate, and certificate. So you see, the verb is estimate, but the noun is estimate, and certificate, which is a word that teachers mispronounce a lot, and it's a very important word in our trade, isn't it? Certificate. Also, intermediate, the level. Sorry, Nicole is excited. So Nicole's my daughter. You can probably hear in the background. So certificate, intermediate. This doesn't work for nouns and adjectives that have only 1 syllable. So of course we have late, gate, mate. But for nouns and adjectives that have 2 or more syllables, in the vast majority of cases, the ATE is not going to be pronounced ate. It's going to be pronounced it. This is a very common pronunciation mistake. And I'm sorry, this is not accent. Okay? I love my accent. I love Brazilians' accents. I think you should be proud of your accent. Absolutely. There's absolutely nothing wrong about accent. This is not an accent. This is not accent. This is a pronunciation mistake. Okay? Saying certificate as a noun is not accent. It's a pronunciation mistake. So I think, you see, when we talk about language, it's funny that when we're talking about language, we usually, it's usually with the goal of excusing our mistakes somehow. It's like, oh, no, but certificate is okay, walk kid and lie kid is okay. It's international English, it's English as a lingua franca. Look, I'm absolutely, oh, Diana, Dri, it's you, hello. The word yes. I still don't know how to pronounce that, Adriana. Why did you do that to me? I think it's pedagogy, or something like that. But it's a hellish word to pronounce. That's Susan gave another example here. Chocolate. 2 syllables, not 4 like in Portuguese. And 8 sound. The ATE at the end sounds it. Marie, English as lingua franca is a phenomenal topic, phenomenal. But you know why I think that at the moment it doesn't concern us, I mean us as users of the language so much, because the market still demands that we sound very good in English. Yeah? So yeah, I mean when we're talking about students, using English, I think it depends on their goal, depends on their objective, it depends on what they're going to use English for. But when it comes to teachers, I mean, saying that pronouncing certificate, it's okay because it's international English, yeah, wow. So call it international English, call it English as a lingua franca, call it George, call it Paul, call it Ringo, call it whatever you want, but that's going to get in the way of professional development. That's going to get in the way of getting better chances in the profession. So we need to improve our pronunciation, our grammar, our vocabulary, the whole thing. Not only today, not only tomorrow, but every single day of our career. And there's another thing, we're not regular students of English. We're not advanced students of English. The needs that we have are different. The mistakes that we can make, I think, are different. It's fine when an advanced student of English says slangs, for example. It is not fine when a teacher says slangs, because slangs isn't countable, and a teacher shouldn't say slangs. A teacher shouldn't say advices. A teacher shouldn't say informations. You shouldn't. Yeah? Somebody mentioned a pronunciation course. I do have pronunciation courses for teachers, so I will do some shameless self-promotion in the end. BBC Learning English is a phenomenal website. Phenomenal, phenomenal. Lots of interesting stuff there. I absolutely fantastic. There are great tools there. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on us, Julian. Of course there is. We're teachers. Rachel's English pronunciation is very good too. You know, anyway, there's a great app by Macmillan called Sounds, which is amazing as well, that you can get on the App Store or the Google Store. I forgot what it's called now. We can get that too. But we have to work on our pronunciation. I mean, do you know what elision is? Do you know what assimilation is? Do you know why it is that sometimes we say doder, for example, without the sound see her? Or why Jason Mraz, for example, in his song 93 Million Miles sings, she told me instead of she told me. And why this year sometimes can sound this year. I mean, why? I mean, we need to know these things. You know what? Pronunciation, specifically talking about pronunciation, I think one of the most important reasons why we should teach pronunciation to students is to make them better listeners. Yeah, to make them better listeners. It's fine, perhaps, if a student is never going to say, if I'd gone to the party, I would have seen her. If I'd gone to the party, I would have seen her. But they have to be able to understand this, because if they don't understand this, then it's a problem, isn't it? So one of the reasons why we have to understand features of pronunciation, so that we're able to teach features of pronunciation, so that students are going to be able to understand English better. Yeah, even if they're not going to speak like that most of the time or necessarily. But anyway, in a nutshell, just to summarize, vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, we need to study these things more. Yeah, we need to know how to explain. We need to be confident with the theory of the language. We do. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you work for a school where you don't use terminology in your teaching. The jargon of your business, you're supposed to know it. But I'm not only talking about jargon, obviously. I'm talking about being able to discuss soccer in English, being able to talk about soap operas in English, being able to talk about movies in English, being able to talk about traveling in English, being able to use English competently as a user. That's what teachers are supposed to be able to do, and oftentimes are not able to do. Okay, so far we only have about 7 minutes left. Are you too bored? So, there is a great book called English Pronunciation for Brazilians. Yes, by Marcelo Marcelino, Sônia Godoy, and Chris Gontov. Absolutely phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. Fantastic book. There's another great book too. This one here, Inglês para Professor, which is about vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation for teachers. By the way, I understand. I mean, Disal told me that there's going to be a raffle. Not here, not during the webinar. That they're going to do a raffle together with. They're going to be a raffle among all of you who participated or registered, and somebody is going to get a copy of the book. So thank you, the people who have a copy of the book. Continuing and starting to finish then, what I think is a way forward, what I think we can do as professionals, and I'm going to go back very quickly here to the money thing. Yes, it's true. It's true. We're not paid enough. We're not paid enough. Native speakers who write "I would" or "none" sometimes are getting paid more money than we are. But I'm going to tell you something. and I mean it, and I'm going to tell you this as a colleague, I'm going to tell you this as a fellow teacher. There is a way of making more money in ELT. You can have, I don't know, a comfortable life. You can make, you can get better salaries. You can get more private students. You can work for the best schools in the country. But one of the things that's going to get you there is improving your English. So I'm going to tell you this. Get better at English. Get better at English. I mean, every single day, and doors will open. If you're working for a place, and then I hear a lot, I know, but my school is not going to pay me more money if I get a CPE, so leave the school. Do you have any idea how many language schools there are out there? Or how many, do you have any idea how many people in Brazil need to learn English? I mean, do you really need to stay stuck in a school that won't pay you more if you have the CAE or the CPE? Leave it, get the hell out of it, run away from it. And so we have we do tend, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about anyone specifically, okay, but we do tend to blame it a lot on other people. And we love blaming it on the system, on the schools, on the Pope, yeah. But we're to blame a lot too. It is very hard to get better opportunities if you are not doing anything to earn them. Yeah. So I'm not saying this is your case. I'm saying this is many teachers' cases. And I'm not saying that the system is not flawed, and I'm not saying that we are not sometimes looked at as second-class professionals, but we're not. We are not. Yeah? So Pedro asked an interesting question. Pedro, I mean many things. I'm going to tell you something. I don't have much time, but I'm just going to tell you something. I don't think, okay, how am I going to say this in a way that's not going to get me in trouble? I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know. It might not be graduation courses. I don't like the state of affairs in letras courses, for example, in Brazil. That's all I'm going to say. I don't have enough time for it to go and talk about letras courses today. No, I don't think that's, but I don't think that's the way forward. No, I would suggest you go and do letras if you want to work in regular education. You're going to need to be a licensed teacher. You're going to need it. Otherwise, no, I wouldn't say that that is the way at all. A master's course depends. Then it depends on the master's course. Depends on where, on what, on who the professors are. Depends on a million variables. So I don't know, Max. I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. If you want to discuss that with me, you can write to me and then we can talk about it. Yeah, but I would say that no, letras is not necessarily our way forward. But studying is. Studying a lot is. Studying grammar, studying vocabulary. Somebody mentioned watching movies and series and paying attention. Absolutely. Luis Otávio Barros, one of the most incredible professionals in our area, he talks about listening to movies in Dolby Surround. That's how he calls it. It's like one ear, you're paying attention, you're having fun, you're listening to what's going on, and with the other one, you're paying attention to language, to the interesting bits of language that are being used. So I think this is a way forward. Luis Otávio Barros. Luis with the Z, Otávio Barros. Okay? Read vastly and variedly. I think if there's one thing you can do, the most important language learning exercise there is reading. Read as much as you can. Read as much as you can. Read everything you can get your hands on. Right? This is the way forward. This will save your life. All this will lead to opportunities. Yeah, this is the way forward. Yeah? Reading. Carla, write to me. Let's talk about it. I don't mean you shouldn't do letras. That's not what I said. Yeah, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is that letras sometimes, when you do like 3 years of letras, for example, online, and you don't have a single class in English, I really don't know what good that's going to do to your English, for example. I mean, 3 years of studying education subjects and very little in the way of English. Now, if you did a Letras course where you're actually studying English and reading literature, then by all means, do it twice. Yeah? But unfortunately, that's not most courses at the moment. CELTA is not language, but CELTA, I agree, better than Letras in many contexts, right? I mean, it depends on what it is that you're going to do the CELTA for, what your objective is. Yeah? Guys, I need to finish. Unfortunately, it is 8:30. Pessoal da Disal vai me bater porque eu não terminei ainda. I just have a few suggestions of books, apart from my book, of course. The English Verb, about language. So these are all great. The English Verb might just be the most life-changing book about language I've ever read. Yeah. So it might be the most fantastic book about language I've ever read. About Language is a brilliant book, written for teachers by Scott Thornbury. This is what the Practical English is one of my favorite books. We have these books, one on pronunciation, sound foundations, which is absolutely amazing. How to teach vocabulary, English vocabulary news. I mean, there are many possibilities. You just need to go and see what works for you. Yeah. So guys, I'm sorry about this this first video, September 25th. I copied and pasted from somewhere else. And anyway, I have a YouTube channel. This is a short link, IPP YouTube. It's been a bit neglected of late, but basically I discuss language there. Then there is the page Inglês para Professor. Inglês para Professor is a page to discuss courses that I run for teachers and also English on occasion. This is a link for you to buy the book. And finally, and again, this is my email. This is how you find me on Facebook, Higor Cavalcante. This is my email address. Look, keep the conversation going. Keep on talking about language development for teachers. Do this for yourself. Do this for me. Do this for all the people in this room, right? You are beautiful people for being here with me today. Over 150 of you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the birthday wishes. It has been very fun, and I hope to see you around. I mean, in conferences, on Facebook, everywhere, right? Thank you very much. All the best, and see you guys around. Thank you. Keep on studying English, and if your English is already great, tell your friends about it. See you.